For our Eucharistic reflection today, I'm going to do something just a little bit different. This is a book called The Way of the Wolf. It's by Martin Bell. I've had this book 20 years, I guess, and as you can see, it's gotten a lot of good use. I ran across this book the first time when I was a camper at Lutheridge, and I remember lots of years, some of the camp counselors would use this book for devotions, and so when I was a camp counselor at Lutheridge, I had the opportunity to do the same with my campers. And this is one of my absolute favorite stories. And I think it's a really good story to get at the heart of the sacrificial love that we experience through Christ. It's called The Porcupine Whose Name Didn't Matter. Joggy stood before the mystery of his own life, much as any other porcupine might have. That is to say, he was exceedingly cautious in the face of it. I don't mean to imply that it was difficult for Joggy to acknowledge the mystery. On the contrary, he had no trouble whatsoever recognizing the ebb and flow of his own limitations and the infinite variety and possibility within his universe. Joggy knew about the ongoing beat of life, the daily, the humdrum, the having one day showed up and now, like it or not, the finding oneself here in the midst of existence, virtually crushed by an environment called upon to create the entire world. The bittersweet mingling of all this with an inner insistence to go on and on until what? Joggy knew about the ongoing beat of life. It throbbed somewhere deep within him. Beneath the prickly spines, in the center of his tiny body, a thumping, steady, insistent, unrelenting, the mystery. Totally aware, more lucid perhaps than he desired to be, Joggy lived and loved and laughed and cried tentatively. One might say that anger, frustration, and tenderness had been so delicately woven into the fabric of his person as to make difficult our perceiving of any of them. Joggy was cautious in the face of the mystery, so cautious, in fact, that almost nobody knew his name. Most of the animals in the forest had seen the nearsighted porcupine moving slowly about, poking his pointed black nose into the vegetation, bristling and puffing, squinting and stumbling. Few had spoken to him. Now and then someone would say hello and ask after his health, an attempt to strike up a conversation of sorts. This never really led to anything, however, because Joggy would not. No, that isn't fair. Joggy could not risk such a head-on collision. Joggy's decisional hesitancy usually expressed itself this way. When asked what his name was, he would answer, "It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what my name is. Can't you see? What difference does it make? I won't tell you what my name is because it doesn't matter." That would be the reply. And more often than not, that would be the end of the conversation. Joggy could not embrace another. He would not tell anyone his name, and the result was almost always the same. The other animals avoided him. One significant exception to this was Gamaliel, the raccoon. Gamaliel didn't mind Joggy's reticence at all. It didn't bother him when the prickly little porcupine was silent for hours at a time. He'd never even thought to ask about Joggy's name. Gamaliel could remember very little before the accident, and much of what had happened since was blurred somewhere in the recesses of his brain, all but lost to memory. Raccoons are generally alert and resourceful creatures with keen perception and excellent memories, but all of this had changed for Gamaliel. Ironically, he wasn't even certain why. There had been a flash of light, and then something hard ripped into the side of his head. His whole body convulsed with the pain, the white, hot, wet, thrashing God, when will it stop pain, that pitched him bleeding from the tree into the underbrush and drove him forward without his left side pulling any weight at all, by instinct only. Screaming pain that shrieked behind his eyes the one and only word of hope he knew, and then, as suddenly as it had come, it was gone. And Gamaliel had only to look at himself in the quiet waters of the forest pond to recognize why no one would come near him anymore. Everything had changed. He didn't even look like a raccoon. The whole left side of his head was missing, and he had no fur at all around his eyes where his once elegant mask had been, and he could barely pull himself along with his right front leg. Gamaliel had only to look at himself in the forest pond to realize why everyone hurried past when he called out to them. But the crippled raccoon never again would look at his reflection in the quiet waters, not because he wasn't willing to see his disfigured image, but rather because he wasn't able to see anything at all. Ever since the accident, Gamaliel had been totally blind. Joggy found Gamaliel about 2 days after the pain had stopped and approximately 3 hours after the raccoon had given up all hope. A sound close by, Gamaliel trembled. "Is someone there?" he whispered. First, Joggy didn't say anything. He looked at Gamaliel and noted that his left side was paralyzed. And then, after a moment, he realized that the animal was blind. The nearsighted porcupine moved closer. "You're a raccoon," he said out loud. "Oh, yes, indeed I am," Gamaliel stuttered. "Only I think something awful has happened to me. I can't see anything at all, and I can barely move. Please tell me what happened to me. Am I going to die? Why won't anyone stop when I cry out? Why can't I see? What has happened? Please, I'm afraid." And in Gamaliel's searching, empty, sightless eyes, tears began to form. And Joggy sniffed. In the center of his body, the beat of life, faster now, answered him. "Don't just stand there with your spines bristling and your heart pounding. Answer him." Joggy spoke with a steady and quiet voice. "I believe you have been shot. Cannot be certain, of course, but that's my opinion. Are you in a great deal of pain?" "No. At first there was pain. But I can't feel anything now. In fact, my whole left side is numb. No more pain, just, well, nothing." Gamaliel's eyes opened and closed aimlessly. Joggy was silent, his tiny body shivering, breathing labored, short, difficult breaths. What now? An extended period of time. Gamaliel spoke in a hoarse voice. "Are you still there?" Joggy's heart beat faster. "Yes, I'm here. I was just wondering what to do now." "Oh, you don't have to do anything, honestly, I mean that. You don't have to do anything at all. Just stay with me for a little. Just be there. Just don't go away, please. You don't have to do anything. Just stay with me. I'm afraid. You won't go away, will you?" Joggy swallowed hard. "No," he said deliberately, and with as much conviction as he could muster. "No, I won't go away." "Thank you," Gamaliel said quietly. And then the wounded raccoon fell asleep. Joggy stood behind Gamaliel all that day. Then, when evening came, a cool breeze made his spines whistle softly, and the sound woke the raccoon. "Are you there?" "Yes. I told you I wouldn't go away. I'm hungry." "I thought you probably would be," Joggy replied. "Can you move at all?" Gamaliel stretched out his right leg forward and pulled himself along the ground. "Good for you," said Joggy. "That will do nicely. I can bring you food, but you will have to maneuver for yourself in order to get to water. I believe you have enough strength to reach the pond. It isn't very far, and I can guide you directly to it. Come on, let's see how it goes." That was how it began. An unusual partnership, perhaps. Certainly the rest of the animals in the forest were surprised to see the pair of them moving slowly about, managing to live from one day to the next without really doing much of anything. Occasionally, Joggy would describe something for Gamaliel, or answer a question, or direct the crippled raccoon toward a tasty morsel of food. And Gamaliel, for his part, chattered happily, basked in the sun, and generally enjoyed his friend's company. They made a home for one another, Joggy and Gamiel. Not a regular home exactly, not a place. More like a shelter from the excessive pain that each of them had known. A coming together of two lonely and frightened creatures. A bond of trust that asked no questions, expected nothing at all except the merciful being together that made waking up tomorrow possible. Gamiel didn't mind when Joggy was silent for hours at a time. He could sense the beat, thumping, ongoing, steady. There. It was enough. Joggy was with Gamiel for 1 full year before the injured raccoon finally died. It was a quiet event, almost a surprise, but the Joggy had been expecting it for so long. Gamiel's strength just finally gave out, and the mystery enveloped him completely. You know, I've been expecting this for quite some time now, Joggy said to the raccoon who lay there on the ground, no longer able to hear him. I'm surprised that you managed to stay alive as long as you did. And I knew the day that I found you, it couldn't last. Not for long, anyway. You've been hurt too badly, and I never expected you to live this long, and yeah, well, I hoped it might have been a little longer. Do you know what I mean? You see, I never knew anybody very well. Not that we ever talked much or anything like that, but I felt like I knew you anyway, even without talking. And I have a really hard time talking to anybody or getting to know anybody, and nobody wants to get very close to me because of all the spines that I have sticking out of me. And I don't suppose you ever knew that I had spines sticking out all over me, did you? They're sort of like needles, and they're sharp. I guess they scare everybody a bit. I hope you don't mind me talking so much, and I really don't know why I'm talking to you now. I suppose it's just that I had a little more to tell you before you died, and I've been wanting to say this for almost a year and never quite found the right time to do it. And it's too late now, I realize, but I've been wanting to tell you that it's been an honor to meet you, and that you are indeed a very handsome raccoon, and that I would like to consider you my friend. The porcupine cleared his throat. A tear dropped onto his nose. The center of his body, the ongoing beat of life. Beneath the prickly spines, wildly thumping, tell him. Don't just stand there with your spines bristling and your heart pounding, tell him. Oh, and by the way, I'd like to tell you what my name is. It's a funny name, I suppose, but I'd like you to know what it is. A moment's hesitation, and then it's Joggy. Without another word, the tiny porcupine turned away from Gamiel's lifeless form and began to cry. What he did not see was a large silver wolf standing statue-like in the shadows, fire eyes smoldering. We pray together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial, and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom and the power and the glory are yours now and forever. Amen.